My family tried to steal my house from my brother. After they kicked me out, I always knew my family favored my younger brother Ethan, but I never thought they'd go this far. When I turned 18, they kicked me out, claiming it was time I learned to be independent. I had nowhere to go, no savings, just a suitcase and a head full of questions. I crashed on friends' couches, took odd jobs, and somehow I managed to survive. It was rough, but I found strength they never believed I had. Over the next few years, I worked 2 jobs, enrolled in night classes, and saved every penny I could. Eventually, I bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood, not much, but it was mine. The moment I held the keys, I cried. It felt like freedom. Meanwhile, Ethan stayed home, jobless, doing nothing while her parents coddled him like a baby. He never had to lift a finger while I fought tooth and nail for every step I took. Fast forward 5 years. I had finally finished my degree and gotten a stable job. Life was looking up. Then, one Sunday afternoon, I got a call from my mother. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. "We've been thinking," she said. "Ethan's having a hard time, and it's not fair. He doesn't have a place to live. We think it would be best if you let him have your house. You can find something smaller." I thought she was joking. I laughed nervously. "Wait, you want me to give Ethan my house?" She replied like it was the most logical thing in the world. "He's your brother. Families help each other. Besides, you've always been the strong one." My jaw dropped. "You kicked me out when I was a teenager, and now you want to reward Ethan for doing nothing by giving him what I worked for." Her tone turned cold. "Don't be selfish." I hung up without saying another word. I sat in silence, my hands trembling. The audacity was unbelievable. That night, Ethan texted me. "Hey man, Mom said you're cool with me moving in. Can we start moving my stuff this weekend?" My heart sank. They had already decided. I replied simply, "No, stay out of my house." The next morning, my parents showed up at my front door. Furious, I didn't let them in. Through the peephole, I saw my mom crying and my dad pacing. I refused to open the door. I stood still, listening to them yell about how ungrateful I was. My phone buzzed constantly with texts from family members I hadn't spoken to in years, all parroting the same line: "It's just a house. Don't tear the family apart." But none of them were there when I was homeless. None of them lifted a finger back then. I finally broke down and texted my cousin Ava. She was the only one who had supported me over the years. I told her everything. She replied, "That's insane. You owe them nothing." Her words gave me strength. I wrote a long message to the family group chat. "I'm not giving up my house. I built this life without your help. Ethan can figure it out like I did. Stop contacting me if you can't respect that." That message exploded the family chat. My aunt called me selfish. My uncle said I was too proud. But I didn't care anymore. For the first time in my life, I stood my ground. Days passed with silence. Then Ethan posted a long rant on Facebook, painting me as a greedy, heartless brother. He left out the part where he'd never worked a day in his life. The post got likes, sympathy, even donations from strangers. I could have fought back online, but I didn't. I knew the truth. Instead, I focused on protecting what I had. I changed my locks, installed cameras, and made sure my home insurance was solid. A week later, I caught Ethan on my porch with a duffel bag, trying to pick the lock. I called the police. When they arrived, he played innocent, saying he was just visiting. They told him to leave and warned him not to return. The next day, my parents called again, furious that I would treat my own brother like a criminal, but I was done being manipulated. "He tried to break into my house. That's not family. That's trespassing," I told them. They hung up. Slowly, the messages from extended family stopped. Ava visited me later that week. "You did the right thing," she said. I nodded. For once, I finally felt free. Ava and I sat on the porch, sipping coffee in silence. "It's crazy how people only show up when they want something," I said. She nodded. "That's not family. That's entitlement." Her words stuck with me. I started reflecting on everything I went through alone, working graveyard shifts, eating instant noodles, barely sleeping while Ethan got to relax at home. No one cared back then. But now that I had something, suddenly I owed them. A few days later, I got a letter in the mail from my parents' lawyer. It wasn't a lawsuit, but a formal request demanding I consider the moral obligation of helping a struggling family member. I rolled my eyes. They didn't have a legal leg to stand on, just more guilt dressed up in paperwork. I tossed the letter in the trash. That night, I got a voicemail from my mom sobbing, saying, "You're tearing this family apart." I didn't respond. I focused on my work, my home, and my peace. I started therapy, something I should have done years ago. My therapist helped me see that what I grew up with wasn't love, it was control. Every time I succeeded, it threatened their narrative. My independence wasn't something they celebrated. It was something they resented, because it meant they couldn't control me anymore. And now, I finally saw it clearly. Weeks passed, and I started feeling better. I repainted my living room, replaced old furniture, and even adopted a dog from the shelter. Life felt mine, peaceful. But just when I thought things were settling down, Ethan showed up again, this time with a moving truck and 2 of his friends. I heard the engine outside and looked through the window. My blood ran cold. They were hauling boxers up to my porch. I stormed outside. "What the hell are you doing?" I yelled. Ethan looked surprised. "Mom said you were just being dramatic. She said if I showed up, you'd let me in eventually." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You really think you can just move into my house because Mom said so?" He shrugged. "You've got plenty of space. Why can't you just share?" I called the police immediately again. The officers arrived quickly, and I showed them the previous report and the new footage from my security camera. Ethan tried to downplay everything, claiming it was a misunderstanding. But the officers weren't buying it this time. They told him he was trespassing and warned that next time he could be arrested. His friends looked uncomfortable and slowly began loading the boxers back onto the truck. After they left, I sat in the quiet, shaking with rage and disbelief. I called Ava and told her everything. "They're not going to stop," she said. "You need to draw a permanent line." I agreed. So I filed a restraining order against Ethan. It wasn't easy yet. Felt extreme, but I had no other choice. He had crossed too many lines. I needed to protect my space, my sanity, and my future from being invaded again. Once the restraining order was approved, I sent a copy to my parents with a note. "This is not a game. Respect my boundaries or lose all contact." The backlash came fast. Voicemails full of insults, emails accusing me of betrayal, even a letter from my grandmother begging me to reconsider. But I stayed firm. I wasn't the same scared kid they kicked out years ago. I was stronger now, and I had something to lose. Time passed. Slowly, painfully, the noise died down. No more calls, no more surprise visits. I kept to myself, worked hard, and started building a new circle of people who actually cared: friends, colleagues, even neighbors. I started volunteering at a local youth shelter, helping kids who were going through what I did. It gave me a sense of purpose, a way to turn my pain into something meaningful. One afternoon, I was speaking to a teenager who had just aged out of the foster system. He asked me how I got my life together. I smiled and said, "By realizing I didn't owe anyone anything except myself." He nodded like he understood, and in that moment I realized I had truly healed. Not because my family changed, but because I did. I stopped trying to prove myself to people who never saw my worth. A year passed. On the anniversary of buying my house, I threw a small party with a few close friends. Ava brought balloons, and my coworker James brought a homemade cake. We toasted to growth, healing, and cutting ties with toxicity. I stood in my kitchen, the same one I once cried in. Unsure of how to pay the bills, and I felt peace. No shadows of guilt, no footsteps of entitled relatives, just laughter and light. That night, as I cleaned up the last of the dishes, I saw an envelope slipped under my front door. My heart sank. I opened it carefully. It was from my mom. Inside was a photo of our family from years ago. A note scribbled on the back: "We miss you. Please come home." But the thing was, I was home. This house, this peace, this life, I had built it alone, and I wasn't about to trade it for empty nostalgia. The photo went into a drawer, not the trash. I didn't want to erase the past, I just didn't want to live in it. That was the difference now. I no longer needed their validation. I didn't crave their acceptance. I was done performing, done begging for love that came with conditions. I wasn't angry anymore, just detached. And in that detachment, I found the freedom I had been chasing all my life. Months later, I got a message from my cousin Mia, the only family member who ever showed me real kindness. She said, "I heard what happened. Just want you to know I'm proud of you. It brought tears to my eyes. Not because I needed the praise, but because it reminded me that kindness still existed in my bloodline. Maybe not from the loudest voices, but from those who saw me clearly all along. I started mentoring others who'd been through similar toxic families, standing up for themselves. My story became something bigger than pain. It became proof. Proof that you don't have to keep people in your life just because they share your DNA. That you can walk away, that you can choose peace over chaos, and that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. Ava helped me launch a podcast. We called it Found Family. Each week, we told stories, ours and others, about breaking generational cycles and building new lives from the ground up. It gained traction. Messages started flooding in. You told my story. I finally feel seen. Thank you for helping me leave. I realized my voice, once silenced by guilt, now had the power to help others find their own. One day, I stood in front of a room full of college students, giving a talk on boundaries and rebuilding your life. I looked out and saw young faces, some scared, some angry, some hopeful. I told them everything I wish I'd heard at their age. You are not responsible for fixing broken people who refuse to heal. You deserve more than crumbs. You are allowed to protect your peace. I closed the talk with a simple message. You don't owe anyone access to your life just because they once held a door open. You owe yourself everything you were denied. Take it back. They applauded, but it was the silence afterward, the quiet that comes when something truly lands, that told me I had made an impact. My story wasn't just mine anymore. It was a lighthouse for others, still in the storm.